Okay, welcome everybody. We are holding Daf Mem Tes, Masechta Avodah Zarah 49. And we're going to start from the Mishnah on Daf Mem Ches Amid Beis. So the Mishnah, we're discussing the Asherah tree. Asherah tree is the tree that the Goy worshipped as an Avodah Zarah. So the Mishnah says, Zorin Taktel Yerakos, one is permitted to plant underneath this tree vegetables, Bimei Sagashaman, during the rainy season. Why? Because it's actually damaging to the vegetables because when you plant it under the tree, it provides shade and blocks the sun, and the vegetables desperately need the sun during the rainy season. Um, so therefore, it's not a good idea to plant it. So you're not benefiting from planting it underneath the idol tree. But during the summer months, if you plant a vegetable underneath the tree in the summer months, well, you're benefiting from the tree because now the tree is shading the vegetables. Hi, Sheldon, we just began. We're talking
Okay.
planting a vegetable underneath a tree, an Asherah tree, an Avodah Zarah tree. So you're allowed to plant the vegetable during the winter months because you're not benefiting from the tree, but not in the summer months because the summer months you're benefiting from the tree because this tree is providing shade. The hachazerin, but that lettuce loy b'moisachama v'loy b'moisach that lettuce you're not allowed to plant underneath the tree, not during the summer months, not during the rainy months, because um, because the shade that the tree is providing is very good for the lettuce all year round, and therefore don't plant never lettuce underneath an Avodah Zarah tree. But vegetables you can plant, according to the Tanakama, vegetables you can plant when? In the winter months. Rabbi Yossi has a problem with that. Af lo yerakis b'moisek shaman. You can't plant vegetables even in the winter months. Why? Because even though you're not benefiting from the shade of the tree, but the leaves of the tree are falling off the tree, and falling down where the vegetables are planted, and they turn into fertilizer. And one could understand this, that Rabbi Yossi holds that although the vegetable is growing from the ground and the fertilizer is aiding in the growth, but since you have a davar aser and a davar mutter that's aiding in the growth of a vegetable, so the vegetable becomes aser. So that's Rabbi Yossi holds. That's called, is a very important point. Zeh v'zeh goyim. If you have two things causing an action, something that's aser and something that's mutter, the result of that is an aser product. So here you have that. An aser product, the vegetable is aser because the tree, the fertilizing of the leaves of the tree and the ground are causing this vegetable to grow. Nevertheless, the Chachamim hold its mutar. So the Gemara jumps into that. Remember the Rabbi Yossi Saba, Zev Goyim Asa. If two things cause something, the result is asa. Rabbanan Amri, Rabbanan say, who have no problem with planting a vegetable underneath the tree, even though there's going to be fertilizing the tree, because they hold that it's not just the fertilizers making the plant grow, it's also the ground making the plant grow, and therefore the vegetable remain mutter. Says the Gemara, ha'ipcha shaminala, but we their opinions are reversed in another Mishnah. It's now we learned in a Mishnah. In getting rid of an avodah zarah, how does a Jew get rid of avodah zarah? Rabbi Yossi says shaychik, he just grinds it down, v'zoyra l'ruach, and scatters it to the wind. Oy mataliyam, will throw it into Yam HaMelech. The Chachamim said you throw into the Yam HaMelech, but Rabbi Yossi added that you can grind it down and scatter it into the wind into your field. Amr loy, so Chachamim said, Afu nasa zevel, that will become fertilizer. So therefore, that's not a good idea. Comes out that Rabbi Yossi doesn't mind if the avodah zarah is fertilizer, and the Chachamim say it's a problem. So kasha d'Rabbanan Rabbanim, kasha Rabbi Yossi. It seems to be a direct contradiction between Rabbanan of that Mishnah and the Rabbanim of our Mishnah, and a direct contradiction between Rabbi Yossi of that Mishnah and Rabbi Yossi of our Mishnah. So the Gemara attempts. Bishlam and Rabbi Yossi like kasha. Really, Rabbi Yossi is not a question. Hasam the ka'azali ibn mater, hachad like ka'azali ibn aser. When does Rabbi Yossi hold that it's a zev is aser is only if you like by the vegetable underneath the tree. Well, the tree still remains. It's just a leaf falling down, so the vegetable will become aser because that's a problem. But here, if you're destroying an avodah zarah and it turns into fertilizer, it's no difference whether an avodah zarah, let's say, broke by itself, where it's not a problem. It's mutter. So that's why Rabbi Yossi is not a stira. He says you can destroy, and I'm not worried if it turns into fertilizer. But in our Mishnah, he's a problem with the fertilizer because the tree is still in existence. El Rabbanon, Kasha. We can't resolve the machlokes, the stira, the contradiction between the Rabbanon and Rabbanon. So the Gemara says, Apach, you have to turn around the position so they line up. One of the Mishnahs is it has the order reversed, and therefore Rabbanon will have an aligned position, and Rabbi Yosef will have an aligned position. So you have to turn it around. Something's wrong. Now the Gemara is going to say something fascinating. Loilam loy tepach. You never turn it around. And what the Gemara is now going to say, nobody holds zev zeh goyim mutter. Everybody holds zev zeh goyim is aser. Rabbi Yossi Kedishamin. Rabbi Yossi, you can answer zev zeh goyim is aser, and you can answer it by when you're destroying the avodah zarah. Then once it's destroyed already, it's not a problem if it turns into fertilizer. The Rabbanan, why the Rabbanan, if they also hold zev zeh goyim is aser, right? Because they have a problem with avodah zarah turning into fertilizer. Here they don't have a problem. The Rabbanan agree, and this is a point. Rabbanan agree that the leaves of the tree will become fertilizer for the vegetable, and that's a benefit. But the fact is, it's providing shade during the winter season. So it does something wrong more than it does right, the tree. So if it does something more than what it does right, then it's not a problem leaving the vegetables planted underneath the tree during the winter months. Because during the winter months, the vegetable needs the sun and the tree is blocking it, despite the fact that the tree is providing fertilizer. So now the Gemara is now saying everybody holds zev zeh goyim asa. Says the Gemara of Asavar Rabbi Yossi zev zeh goyim asa. Does Rabbi Yossi hold like that? Tanya, we learned in the Brisa. Rabbi Yossi says noitin yichasher oila ve'inoitin egesh shel arla b'neishu peri. So the Rabbi Yossi says that if you have a tree of arla, so only the fruit is aser, right? Arla fruit, but the branch of the tree is not aser. So one can replant an arla branch, but cannot replant an arla fruit. Rabbi Yossi agrees ex post facto. Shim nata, if you did plant the fruit, v'hivrech or hirkev, or you grafted, or you sunk into the ground a branch and connected it, or connected it to another tree. So let's say you branched a tree, a branch from an arla tree to an old tree. Right? So mutter, then everything becomes permitted. Now here he says, even if you planted the fruit of the tree and a new tree grew out, there's no problem with that tree. Why? Because it's not just the fruit that makes the tree, it's the ground that makes the tree. So we see that Rabbi Yossi holds zev zeh goyim is mutter. Tanya nami hochi, moide Rabbi Yossi. It was not just Rabbi Rav saying that. The Brisa says that Rabbi Yossi would agree. We go to Amud Aleph. She'im hivrech shemnata v'hivrech v'hirkev mutter. If you plant a fruit, if you plant an arla fruit, which is asur b'hana, and you plant it into the ground, the tree that comes out of it is mutter. Why? Because it's a brand new tree. And it's zev zeh goyim. It's the fruit of the arla tree, which you're not supposed to benefit, but it's the ground itself that's helping a new tree grow, and therefore Rabbi Yossi holds zev zeh goyim is mutter. So how could Rabbi Yossi hold, in our case, by avodah zarah, zev zeh goyim is also? Chitema, you're going to say Shana le Rabbi Yossi ben Shar Isurim l'avodah zarah, that Rabbi Yossi will hold Shar Isurim, regular other Isurs, zev zeh goyim is mutter. When it comes to avodah zarah, we're going to go strict and say zev zeh goyim is asa. Says the Gemara, Mishanale, can you say there's a difference? But Tanya, we learned in a Brisa, Sadesh nizdablu bezevel avodah zarah. Let's say you have a field that they fertilize it with the fertilizer of Avodah Zarah. You use the Avodah Zarah to fertilize the field. You spread fertilizer, but it's Avodah Zarah fertilizer. You fed a cow and fattened it up with food that was from an Avodah Zarah, animal food from Avodah Zarah. So Tanachad in one brisa says, no problem. You saw the tizara, you could plant on the field, par tishachad, you could shech the field, because that brisa holds zev goyim is mutar. The Tanya Idach, another brisa says Sarah Tavar. You got the field, you gotta get rid of all the fertilizer of Avodah Zarah, leave it fallow. The para tirza, and let the para lose weight, so it loses all the animal food it gained from the Avodah Zarah. So must be that there is an opinion that holds zev goyim is mutar. So my love, ha Rabbi Yossi, ha Rabbanan. That Rabbi Yossi is the one that says zev goyim is mutar, and Rabbanan say zev goyim is aser. So how could you go and with that track and say that everybody holds zev goyim is aser? We have a brisa that clearly has an opinion of somebody who holds zev goyim is mutar. Answers the Gemara, right? No, it doesn't necessarily have to be Rabbi Yossi. It could be somebody else. Loi, ha Rabbi Lazar. Rabbi Lazar holds zev goyim as aser, and we have a lot of people hold zev goyim as aser. The ha Rabbanan, but there is another Rabbanan that holds zev goyim as mutar. Says the Gemara, hey Rabbi Lezer ben Rabbanan, where's this machlokes between Rabbi Lezer and Rabbanan? Ilema Rabbi Lezer Rabbanan or that we have in Pesachim. There's a machlokes between Rabbi Lezer and Rabbanan. The time we learned in the Mishnah. I believe this is in Pesachim, but it's probably in Truma. So Arsha Chulim, you have yeast of Chulim, Mishal Truma, and of Truma. Let's say a half a piece of yeast of Chulin and a half a piece of yeast of Truma that made a bread. Shenaflu Seichisa that fell into a dough. And now it causes the dough to rise to become a bread. Loy b'zeh kedei lechametz, loy b'zeh kedei lechametz. Each one alone did not have the power to ferment this bread. Now the question is, they combined joint forces and they made it a fermented bread. Is it a truma bread or is it a chulin bread? You have two forces causing a bread to become something. We look at what the last thing that you put in. If you put in truma, it's a truma bread. If the last piece of yeast you put in was a chulin, it's a chulin bread. Because Rabbi Eliezer holds zev goyim is aser. But Chachamim oimim bein shnafa is a chila, bein shnafa is a b'soif eina aser achei boy k'dei lechametz. It really is always will be a chulin bread until you have enough truma yeast to make it a truma bread. But if you're combining it with a chulin, so then it's a chulin. If you're combining it with a truma and chulin, then it still remains a chulin bread. So we see Chachamim holds zev goyim is mutar. V'amar Abaye, and Abaye says Lo shana shekadam silik as isa. Lo kadam silik as isa also. When did Rabbi Lezer say zev goyim is aser? Is only if you actually remove the truma. But if you left the truma inside, even Rabbi Lezer would agree that if you left the yeast of truma still in the bread and you didn't pull it out, since it's there, we'll call it a truma bread. So we see that based on the way Abaye explained it, it would seem that Rabbi Lezer holds zev goyim is aser and Chachamim holds zev goyim is mutar. So the Gemara's question. So now we can answer the resolved stira regarding Avodah Zarah. That means one brisa says zev goyim is mutar with regards to the animal and regards to the field goes according to the Chachamim, and the one that says it's aser goes according to Rabbi Lezer. So the Gemara says, "When my time it Rabbi Lezer Abaye." How do you know that the explanation of Abaye is correct? Dilma time it Rabbi Lezer. Mishum da achar niba igama b'sir surah igama behater mutarim bein salke bein slay salke. Maybe also Rabbi Lezer holds zev goyim is mutar, but he holds it's not a zev goyim. It's whatever finishes the fermentation that caused the fermentation, and that's therefore Rabbi Lezer said that if it doesn't matter whether it's there or not there, it doesn't matter. It's the last one. If you put truma last, then it becomes truma. If you put chulin last, it becomes chulin. But it's not because zev is goyim. It's because we always look at what finished off the process of fermentation. That defines how it became a bread. So it comes out that both Rabbi Lezer and the Chachamim both hold both hold zev v'zeh goyrim is mutter. So you can't resolve that stira using this Rab Lezer Rabbanan. Ella Rab Lezer Rabbanan de Eitzin. The following Rab Lezer Rabbanan about wood. And this is a Mishnah that we're going to learn later on today, Bez Hashem, about the Asherah tree. The Tanah we're going to learn on Amid Beis. Let's say you have an Asherah tree, Notel Hamena Eitzim. You took off a branch. Asurim Bano. You can't benefit from that branch. You came from an Avodah Zarah tree. Hisik bas a tanner, if you fired up an oven, chodesh, if it's a brand new oven, and that's what makes an oven when you fire it up for the first time, that solidifies it to become an oven. So yutatz, you have to take it apart, because when you're going to subsequently bake bread in that oven, it's the isser of this oven along with the bread that you're making, even if you're using non-Asherah wood to light it up, it's still zevazeh is asur. The bread is asur. Yashad, if you lit it to an old oven, use the Asherah wood to light up an old oven. So the oven was an oven even without the Asherah tree. It's now you want to use it to bake bread, yutzan, you have to wait till it cools off, because if you're going to bake a bread with it, the fire that's causing the bread is the Asherah fire. It's the Asherah wood. So afabei as a pas asura bahana. If you bake the bread, it becomes asur bahana. This arva b'acherim, if that bread, which is asur bahana, got mixed up into other breads. Now you have a bread that was helped to be produced through an Asherah tree, and that got mixed up in a basket full of other breads. So then, kulan asuris bahana. Everybody holds that's asur bahana. Rab Lezer says, you're right, they're asur bahana, but yoylech hana li'amamelech. You just take the price of one bread, take the money, and throw it into the salt sea. So you're not benefiting. You actually lost money because of that Asherah bread, and now you can eat all the breads because you can't differentiate which was the Asherah bread, which was not. Amrulai, so the Chachamim don't like that idea. They say all the breads are asa. Ain't pidyon avodah zarah. You can't redeem avodah zarah. If a bread of avodah zarah got mixed up with other breads, that's it. All the breads are asa. So both Rab Lezer and the Chachamim in this understanding, in this both hold zev v'zeh goyim is asa. So Rabbanan the pliga the Releh manhinu. So which Rabbanan holds zev v'zeh goyim is mutar? Ilema the Rabbanan the Eitzim. You're going to say the Rabbanan in that Mishnah of the wood achmuri machmiri. They're machmer. They say not only is the bread asur, but you can never redeem it if it got mixed up. So they hold zev v'zeh asur. El Rabbanan de Sa'ar. So you can say the Rabbanan of Sa'ar was the one that holds zev v'zeh goyim is mutar, right? Because they hold that the bread will always remain chulin. So Ema the Shamat le Rabbanan de Mekili. When do you say the Rabbanan say it's kuladik b'Sa'ar? Yes, by the truma and chulin bread. If you don't know if it's the yeast, if it's chulin or truma, so then they hold zev v'zeh goyim is mutar. By Zarah mi Mekili. What do you know that Rabbanan hold by Avodah Zarah? Are they makel in this? Do they go lenient? So bottom line, where we're holding right now is we don't have an individual who holds zev v'zeh goyim is mutar. We tried to say that from our Mishnah, Rabbi Yossi seems to go away from his original opinion, zev v'zeh goyim is mutar. So how do you resolve our Mishnah where Rabbi Yossi is so upset at this whole idea because of planting a vegetable underneath an Asherah tree? The leaves are causing what? Are causing the vegetable to be fertilized, and that zev v'zeh goyim is asa. So the answer is really Rabbi Yossi holds that's permitted because he always holds zev v'zeh goyim is mutar even by avodah zarah. It's to resolve the steer of the two brises who hold by avodah zarah. Rabbi Yossi holds zev v'zeh goyim is mutar even by avodah zarah, and Rabbana holds zev v'zeh goyim is asur is also by avodah zarah. Rabbi Yossi the Devreim the Rabbana Rabbi Yossi in our Mishnah is speaking on behalf of the Rabbana. Lididi zev v'zeh goyim mutar. Of course, you could plant a vegetable underneath an Asherah tree. There's no problem with that. I hold its problem. Liditchu, according to you, Damrit is Zev Zegarim Asar, but you hold Zev Zegarim as Asar, Oidilamias, Afurakas Bebaisak Shaman. Then you should agree that you shouldn't be allowed to plant vegetables even in the winter months underneath the tree because the leaves are coming down and helping the vegetable grow. And you hold Zev Zegarim as Asar. Rabbanan says, Rabbanan will hold, yes, it's helping its grow, but the tree is also causing more damage by blocking the sunlight. So therefore, the Rabbanan hold you could plant the vegetable underneath the tree during the rainy season. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Mishmuel, halacha Rabbi Yossi. Very important point. The halacha is like Rabbi Yossi, zev goyrim is mutar. Says the Gemara, Hahi Ginsa the Izbal Bezivle Avodah Zarah. There was this garden that they fertilized it using the fertilizer of Avodah Zarah. So Shalach Rav Amram Kamed Rav Yosef. They sent this question to Rav Yosef. Amaleis Rav Yosef answered, Hachi Amar Rav Yehuda Shmuel. This is what Shmuel said. Halacha Rav Yossi. The halacha is like Rav Yossi. So the Zev Goyim is mutter. New Mishnah. Amid Beis. You took wood from the Asherah tree, from the Avodah Zarah tree. Asur mano, you're not allowed to benefit from it. Hisik bo asatana, if you fired up an oven with that wood, im chadash, if it's a new oven, so that makes the oven. So you have to destroy the oven. The oven is an Avodah Zarah oven. Vim yashin, if it was an old oven, so it didn't need the wood of the Asherah tree, yutzad, let it cool down before you can bake with it. Awful by Sapas, if you baked a bread in the new oven, even if you used other woods, or if you didn't wait till it cools down in an old oven, so then asur bana, the bread is asur bana. Nis arva ba'cheres, so if the bread got mixed up with something else, kulan asuris bana, then all the breads are asur bana. We learned this, but yes, just before. You don't say all the breads are asur. What you do is take money, the value of the bread that you lost amongst the other breads, and throw the money into the bathroom or throw it into the Yam HaMelech, so you're not benefiting from that bread. And then you could use all the breads. Amur Lai, so they said to him, Ein pidyon Avodah Zarah, you can't redeem Avodah Zarah. All the breads remain asur. Notel hemenu karkar. If you created a weaving instrument from that tree, from the Avodah Zarah tree, same idea. Asa bahana, you're not allowed to benefit from it. Arag bayis a beged, if you wove a piece of clothing, asa bahana, you can't benefit from that clothing, because what made the clothing? The instrument coming from the Asherah tree. The Zarah b'achei, if that piece of clothing mixed up with others, we're going to say acher and b'achei, doesn't matter. Kulan asur bahana, all the pieces of clothing are asa bahana. You throw the benefit of that piece of clothing to the salt sea. You can't redeem Avodah Zarah. All the clothing are asur. So now the question is, why did the Mishnah give you two examples of the machlokes, whether you could redeem Avodah Zarah, so to speak, or not? Now, everybody holds, by the way, you can never really redeem Avodah Zarah. If I have an Avodah Zarah over here, I can't say, oh, the Avodah Zarah should go on this money. No. But once it gets mixed up, if you have a bread that was made in a way that it has an isser to it, because it was made in an Avodah Zarah oven, and it got mixed up with other breads, so then Rabbi Lazar will say, you just throw the money into the Yam HaMelech. I don't think he says you can eat all the breads. He probably says you can sell the breads to Goyim, but I don't think you can eat it. Nevertheless, utzricha, we need two cases, once about the clothing and once about the bread, to teach you the machlokes between Rabbi Lezer and the Chachamim. The Yashbini Kamaisa would just say the case of the breads. But how come Rabbi Lezer? There, Rabbi Lezer says you can redeem the bread. B'shum be eaten to Kogamra pas kol yisura. Because once you have the bread, there is no isser anymore, because it's already out of the oven, and the isser is not there anymore. Aval karkar, but this instrument that was specifically made with an Avodah Zarah tree, so you can see the Avodah Zarah tree. It's not in an oven, but you can see the Avodah Zarah instrument that created this clothing. The Isser Isur Be'ene, so that Isser is still there. And so if those clothing got mixed up to other clothing, I would think they agreed to the Rabbanim that you could redeem it, that you can't redeem it. Biash meaning karka, if it would just say the story with the weaving instrument, over there Rabbanan said you can't redeem it. But when it comes to bread, once you have a bread, maybe they agree to Rabbi Lezer's idea of just throwing the money of the bread into the sea. So, and that would be good. Tzricha. Halach is like Rabbi Lezer that you could redeem the bread. Allah is like Rabbi Lezer. Rav Ada Barahava. Rav Ada Barahava said, Loishan al pas. Then the story of the breads, that's when Rabbi Lezer said that you could redeem it. Again, you made a bread in an oven that was made, that became an oven through the Avodah Zarah, through Avodah Zarah wood that you fired up the oven for the first time. Okay? So let's say you made a bread in that oven. There, then that bread got mixed up with other breads. Over there, Rabbi Lezer said you could redeem the bread. But if you have a barrel of wine, let's say you have a Avodah Zarah Yayin Nesach, it got mixed up with a bunch of barrels of wine, loy, it would be usher to redeem it. And therefore you could throw out all the barrels of wine. Rav Chizda says, Afil chavis mitaris. Even with the barrel of wine, it's the same idea. You take the value of one barrel of wine, throw the money into the Yam HaMelech, and then you can sell one barrel of wine to a guy. Obviously, you can't drink it because it's Yayin Eser, but you can sell it off to a guy peace beer. Ahu Gavra, there was this person, these Arv Lechavisa, the Yayin Eser B'chamrei. His one Yayin Eser, a barrel of wine, got mixed up with his other wine. A barrel of Yayin Eser wine got mixed up with his kosher wine. Also, the Rav Chizde came to Rav Chizde, what do I do? Amalei, Rav Chizda said, "Shekol arba zurei ushtei nahara." Take 4 zuz and throw it into the river. V'nishter loch, and it's now permitted to benefit from your wine. Throw away the value of the money, and now you can sell off the wine piecemeal. The other 3 more minutes here, and then we'll stop. We'll just do the Mishnah and a little bit of the Gemara. Kate said Mavatla. How does a guy mavato nullify an avodah zarah tree? What do? You chop the tree down? No. Kirsem v'zered, if he takes off pieces of wet branches or dry branches, not if he makes a stick, or sharvit, or he makes a wet stick. Even if he peels off a leaf off the tree, that guy bitla. The guy was nullified the whole tree. Because if he did that, it shows that he doesn't want this tree to be his avodah zarah. Shipa, if he trimmed the tree, litzarcha, for the benefit of the tree, asura, the tree remains aser. Shalai litzarcha, but if he trimmed the tree in order to, take something from the tree for his own benefit, mutaris, then the tree becomes mutter because he nullified the tree. So the Gemara says, what do you do with those trimmings that he trimmed off the tree? Pligiba Rav Huna Rav Chadama Rav, one said Asurin, the trimmings are asa, Chadama Mutarim, and one says it's mutar. Because it's about Tanya command the Mutarim. We learned like the opinion that says that's mutar. The Tanya we learned in the Brisa. Goy Shashipa Avodah Zarah. A guy that trimmed an Avodah Zarah tree. Litzarchai, to benefit the tree, he Ushafah Mutarim. If to benefit himself, let's say he wanted the trimmings and he didn't care about the tree, the tree is mutter and the trimmings is mutter. He wanted to benefit the tree, so then he asura, the tree remains asa, and the trimmings remain mutter. Now, the Yisrael, Shashipa Avodah Zarah, if a Yisrael smoothed out, trimmed an Avodah Zarah tree, no matter what a Jew does to a tree, it's always aser. In other words, here you're going to learn the most important point of Avodah Zarah. Whereas a guy can nullify his Avodah Zarah easily, a Yid can't nullify an Avodah Zarah. If a Yid owns an Avodah Zarah, he has to, destroy it. We can't just nullify it and it becomes mutter. Itmar. We're gonna okay, so let's leave this off for tomorrow, and we will stop right over here and finish off the parak. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.